Hi, Crystal from the Rain Dance Ranch. So, you're probably looking at these things going, wow, that's amazing. I can see what's going on and how awesome this is. Or you could be saying, there's no way in hell I want something like this front and center anywhere in my yard. And I get it. There was a time when I would have really balked having something like this. But now I'm thrilled because I want to grow food in here, maybe some other things. I did sunflowers, which, could be food. You can eat the petals, the seeds, of course. Although the sunflowers that I planted in here aren't really the kind that are good for eating, but, you could pretty much eat them, but you're going to get like a few seeds. There's certain sunflowers that make a lot of seeds for eating, but they tend to grow better in the ground, and they get kind of tall. And so this is for like the sunflowers that I grow in here are usually like the ones that might get 4 feet tall at the most. And then because they're growing in these bins, they may not reach that height. So anyways, but I want to talk about these bins because there's so many people that are like, I can't do it. I can't bend over. I'm renting and I don't want to invest in that and whatever. There's so many reasons why people think that they can't do something, but they might like to. Or they don't realize that someday they may need to. So my advice to the world is to get something like this, and maybe you have a corner of your yard that you can sneak this into. Maybe you could have maybe you could have 2 sets of these, so you've got 6 altogether, and you've got some bins growing in an area that gets a little more shade in the afternoon, and others like these are full sun bins. So that's what I recommend for anybody. Get at least 3 of them and learn to grow in them in whatever spot you put them in. But again, they can be moved. So if you have a spouse or somebody to help you move them, or some men could probably easily move these all on their own. But for me as a woman, I need somebody to help me move these. But they're easy to make and put in place for anybody. It just, once you get the soil in there, it is going to get a little heavy. But well, let's see, can I pick it up? I could, and you know what? I probably actually could even move these on my own if I had a dolly, which my neighbor has one, lets me use it. I don't actually have a dolly right now. I just have like a wheelbarrow. And it's one of those things I need to add to the ranch. But what these are these are the Home Depot HDX bins with the yellow tops, and these are the 27-gallon ones. I highly recommend this size because they're big enough to pretty much plant anything, but they're not so big that they really are cumbersome for a man even to move all on his own once they're filled up with soil. And now my goal is to keep these here in this sunny spot because I'm continuing to see what I can grow in these things year round in the sun without having to move them. And then I have a bunch of other bins that I'm willing to move these guys around bins. So, and then the other thing that I did is I punched holes in them with a drill bit, and I did some on the side here. Let's see, I can't see if it's picking up. There we go. And then I put wood chips down in the bottom, and the wood chips came up about this high in there, and they have since sunk probably at least 3 inches. The whole thing has sunk down over time. I made these last February, and it is now end of September. So look at how much space there is there. I mean, this soil was up at least about right here when I first put it in. So that's a good 2.5, possibly 3 inches. The soil dropped down. And I think it's because of space and degradation of the wood chips down below. And now that the wood chips have really, they're over a year old now under there, and I'm really thinking that this year could be, these bins will probably help me get better yields from like my tomatoes, if that's what I put in here, which I probably will. Because it's starting to really feed the soil, and I'm going to be adding soil from this bin, which is kind of like, well, I don't know what it's made out of, but the reason I use the HDX is they're slightly more expensive than like these might only be $10 or $9 or $8, and these are like 12 or 14. But it's worth it because those stand up in the weather and this doesn't. And this one didn't sink that much because I've got actual logs as well as wood chips under there. So that's something to consider. If you've got some little-ish logs, you could put 2 or 3 of them in there if you're doing the wood chip on the bottom method like I'm doing. And then also the nice thing about the wood chips is not only do they feed your soil, help retain water, and keep your plants hydrated, but they fill up the space down on the bottom, and then your valuable soil, you don't need to use as much of that in the container. But the wood chips will eventually just sort of become soil, and they shouldn't get in the way of planting anything if they're at least a year old. But I would still put in wood chips that might be 6 to 8 months old or something. I think you should be able to still grow. Like I was growing basil. This basil's been in here since February. And it was fine in the beginning. And it struggled a little bit once the summer hit. And I actually was kind of a little lazy on watering it, and you can kind of see how it doesn't look real appealing. But right now the weather is pretty nice, and I'm probably going to have some good basil here for at least another month. And I'm going to probably try to keep these in here until it gets cold in December. And maybe, I guess, November. Usually sometime around Thanksgiving through mid-February, we could have freezes. We get about 10 of them a year. I live in the desert. Obviously, if you live in a colder climate, you'll probably just be taking these all the way out. Unless you wanted to take measures. You could get like another bin that is clear or cloudy. Maybe put a few holes in it for aeration, and then when it's cold, during your cold season, you could try covering stuff like this up, because basil is a perennial. It might be a short-lived perennial, but I'm not sure how long it will live, but I'm going to try to keep these going as long as I can, because I just want to learn about how they respond to the conditions here in my desert location. But anyways, okay, so the other nice thing about these is that they're like at table height, and it's just so nice to work with all of the stuff up where you can easily see it and reach it without having to bend over. And I'm 51, I've got a bum leg, and I can do stuff on the ground, and I have no problem doing it, but it just, for the important stuff, it's just really nice to work with this. And what I've done is I've just gotten these. Okay, let me go back around because I can't see when I get there. I put boards and these blocks underneath to raise it up. Now, the reason why I even did this in the first place is because I have rabbits. And I was planting lettuce, and I mean, I still need to learn what the rabbits won't touch. And so when I do eventually have a few ground beds, which I'm only planning on having a few, I want to plant the stuff that the rabbits don't eat. Except for certain areas I am planning on making little gardens just for the bunnies so they can fertilize that area. So yeah, I mean, if you're concerned about getting on the ground or you have to move, or you might want to actually move the plants around themselves in your yard for their different conditions or for whatever reason, these are amazing. So if you move, you can take these with you and you can just put the lids on them and move them with the soil in it and everything. And I also have some that I'm experimenting with that are going to be wicking, and you only need to put in like one hole about 5 inches up down on the bottom, because you fill up water down at the bottom. You have like a well underneath. So I'll be talking more about those. But even if you didn't need to raise them up as high as I have them, I mean, you could just put them on the ground somewhere, and they're still a little more convenient to reach. Although I do really like them up on these risers, and again, the bunnies can't get to them. So these are my bins. I highly recommend everybody start with at least 3 of them. If you can get 6 of them going, definitely do that. All right, Crystal from the Rain Dance Ranch. When it rains, go out and dance.